So let me make this clear. My two biggest clients, both of whom are property managers, both of them send me over $100,000 a year worth of work in total revenue. They've sent my business that much work for the last 4 years, every single year. And I don't have to do any marketing to get that work, okay? I'm not on Nextdoor, I'm not using Thumbtack or Angie's List, no Facebook ads, no Craigslist ads. I don't put up any flyers, I don't hang any door hangers, I don't go through parking lots putting notes on people's windshields. I don't do anything to get this work other than just run a really solid business. And like I said, two clients, each of which, just my two top clients, both send me over $100,000 a year worth of work orders. So as you might have guessed, I'm a big fan of property managers, but what we're going to do in this video is just go down the list and talk about all the pros and cons about working for property managers or homeowners. In no particular order, here are the categories. Category number one is going to be optionality, and here's how I want to look at this one. When a property manager has a tenant who's paying rent, and that tenant says, hey, the downstairs guest bathroom toilet is running constantly. When that happens, legally in almost every single state, bound by law, that property manager absolutely must get that toilet fixed. It's against the law not to get it fixed. As opposed to a homeowner. Now, if a homeowner's toilet downstairs in the guest bathroom is running constantly, they can just shut that toilet off and say, hey, you know what? Tax return season's coming up in a few months. We'll call a handyman out when we get the tax return. Until then, we're just going to shut the water off to this toilet and tell everybody to use the upstairs guest toilet. Not an option with property managers. They have to get it fixed. They have to get it fixed now, which means there is no roller coaster of ups and downs throughout the year in terms of workload from property managers. Category number two, as I was talking about in the introduction here, is going to be marketing. I cannot stress enough to you, it's not just the money. Not only do I not spend any money marketing ever for the last 4 years, but more importantly, I don't spend any time marketing for the last 4 years. All of my focus is able to go into simply achieving the goals that my clients have set out for me so that I can solve as many of their problems as possible and invoice as much as possible for solving those problems. I do not waste any time on marketing, and if you get yourself some property managers, you won't either. And for some comparison, and this is just a comparison based on what I'm hearing from most of you on this channel most of the time, as a comparison, most of y'all seem to be spending on average $200 to $300 a month either purchasing leads from Thumbtack or putting Google ads out there or any number of other SEO optimizations and or marketing strategies. Most of y'all are spending during the good times $200 to $300 a month on that, and a lot of y'all are spending during the slower times upwards of $500 or $600 a month on that. So I do think property managers are a much cheaper way to get your work. So if you don't want to be burdened putting a lot of your resources into just simply trying to acquire clients, I highly suggest looking at property managers. You don't have to spend much to acquire them, and you don't have to spend anything to keep them. Now, category number three is going to be about vetting. And what I mean when I say vetting is you have to go through a process of learning your client to find out if they're a good client. Some of this takes place before you ever work for them, and you're just trying to figure out before that first job how things feel with this client. And then typically for real vetting to take place, you're going to need to actually do a job or 2 or 3 or 4 and carry them through to completion and verify that you got paid and you got paid on time and they didn't call you back to nitpick a whole bunch of little things that don't matter. Vetting is that whole process that you go through of trying to figure out, is this a good long-term client for me and my business? So when you have a property manager, you do have to vet that property manager. I'm definitely not claiming that they don't need to be vetted and that they're all great. The difference, however, is let's say you need 5 property managers to keep your business busy through the entire year. So how many do you have to vet? Well, you have to vet those 5. Maybe you have to vet a few more that turned out not to be great and you fired them, but you eventually vetted 5 good property managers. And again, once you have them, you have them. All you got to do is keep doing a good job. No more vetting. When it comes to homeowners, if they're not hiring you back for more and more work, right? They only need to hire you for what's broke or for the improvements they want to make. Once that job is done, if nothing new breaks, and if they don't have a lot of money in the bank to just keep bringing you back for lots of improvements, if that's the case, then with these homeowners, you're going to need anywhere from dozens to maybe even a few hundred homeowners per year to get you up to that six-figure level, to keep you busy 5 or 6 days a week, all the weeks of the year. So you're going to have to vet all of these homeowners, and once you do that process of vetting them and you find out that they're a good client, they may not need you again for another 6 months. So the difference between property managers and homeowners when it comes to the time and resources that you put into vetting is that property managers, you need to vet a handful and then you're done for good. And with homeowners, it's a constant, never-ending, year after year, dozens or hundreds per year that you have to vet, and you don't find out they're a bad client most of the time until the job actually goes bad. So number 4, let's talk about seasonality. And if you talk to anybody who's been in this industry for a long time servicing homeowners, they're going to be able to give you a lot of nuanced, complex explanations of the seasonality of the work. You're going to get a lot more work when tax returns come out. You're going to get a lot more work in the months leading up to the holiday season, but not actually during the holiday season because they're trying to get ready for the holidays. Then you're going to get a lot less work during the holiday season. You're going to get a lot less work when it rains for 2 weeks, with the exception of a few leaky roofs. You're going to get a lot less work when it's extra cold. You're going to get a lot less work when it's extra hot, and you're going to get a lot more work when big events come to town, etc., etc. I guess what I'm trying to say here is if you're working for homeowners, the amount of work you get throughout the year for multiple different reasons is going to fluctuate dramatically. In the trades, we call this feast or famine. It's a very common phrase. With property managers, however, here's how it works. Something breaks on the house. The tenant tells the property manager it's broke. The property manager is required by law to have you fix it. They send you the work order, you fix it, and you invoice. And this happens throughout the year, and it's only affected by the rate at which things break. A toilet is going to break at a certain rate. Blinds are going to break at a certain rate. Whatever's breaking in these houses, you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of these houses between all your property managers. So the rate at which things break ends up averaging out to a nice, easy, steady rate throughout the year. Now, one example I will give you that's a slight deviation from the norm is with property management. There is a slowdown from about Thanksgiving to New Year's, not for the entire holiday season, not for the entire winter, but literally from Thanksgiving and maybe the week prior all the way through New Year's. But the week before that week before Thanksgiving, that week before that week is a busy week. And the week after New Year's, that week is a busy week, because all those weeks, that short little time frame I gave you, that's just when people are actively engaged in the holidays and they just don't want scheduling with a handyman to mess up whatever their plans are. But outside of that, the whole rest of the year is normal. And I will tell you, even from Thanksgiving to New Year's, you still have plenty of work. You're going to be as busy as you choose to be. There will be all the jobs in the world you need. You just won't be behind or stressed out about how do I keep up with all this work for those few months there. Now, category 5 is a very important one, guys. This is one of the linchpins of the property management world, one of the tricks that I figured out, and that surrounds ability to pay. So I want you to think of this. When you're working for a homeowner, most of these homeowners you're working for, they're making somewhere in the median income for an average American. On average, most of them are. And they're working hard for that money, and it's not a lot of money. So when they hire you to come work for them, especially if you're charging really good rates, they really, really, really want to make sure that they get their money's worth out of you. But with your property managers, they're not spending their money. They have a homeowner who's asked them to represent them and to rent this home out. And they have an agreement with the homeowner that says, as long as the repair costs less than this much money, you have my pre-approval to just have it fixed. So now from your perspective as the handyman, as long as you keep your rates fair, and I want to really stress this, you do have to have fair rates. But as long as your rates are in fact fair and they're not absurdly high, the money to pay you is already in the bank, or it's going to be in the bank as soon as rent is paid next month. That money is not coming out of the pocket of the person who is hiring you to do the job. They're spending somebody else's money, and therefore they're not as picky. So if your prices are fair, you don't have to spend a lot of time explaining your pricing, and you don't have to negotiate your price down to make anybody happy. You can just show up, do the work, send the invoice, and get paid. And moving on to number 6, we've got quality expectations. So what do I mean by quality expectations? Because we all want to do a good job, right? Well, Yes, of course we do, but here's the difference. Let's say you're going to come into this house and you're going to do a patch and paint. So you're going to go around all the walls, pull all the hardware, fill all the holes, get touch-up paint and touch up the paint around all the holes to try to make these walls look fresh. Now, if you're doing this for a homeowner, when you go into that house with that homeowner, they're following you around. They're looking at all the walls. They're paying out of their own pocket, right? Because it's their money, they're really emotionally invested. And they're looking for anything you might have missed. So in a home, you know, for me, in an 1,800 square foot, 2-story, regular residential spec home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, regular old family in a regular old neighborhood, I'm probably going to put in about 6 hours on a patch and paint. I'm going to fill hundreds of holes, if not thousands, but definitely hundreds, 300, 400, 500 holes. Out of the 500 holes that I fill, did I miss 3? Maybe. Is it a super big deal if I did? Not really. Not to a property manager, but to that homeowner who's paying you, let's say on average, $100 an hour. So now they've paid you $600, way more money than they make in a day. They paid you that much that day to come out and fill all the holes in their house and do the touch-up paint. So you better believe when you're making way more money than them, they're going to be going behind you and looking for every tiny hole you missed, every little paint touch-up that isn't quite a perfect match to the paint next to it. They're really going to dive in and want a perfect job done. And I want to be clear, it always needs to be a good job, but there is a big difference between a 94th percentile job, a 96th percentile job, and a 98th percentile job, and a 100th percentile just isn't even possible to begin with. But those are going to be a big difference because the homeowner is going to call you 3 weeks later and ask you to make a return trip to their property to get one nail hole in a closet that you missed that doesn't matter. The property manager's never going to do that. They're never going to see that nail hole in the closet that you missed, the one and only. And if they do, they're definitely not going to call you all the way back out there to get that one nail hole in that one closet. And if they do, that's a property manager that you need to be vetting and hopefully eventually getting out of your rotation and replaced with a better property manager. But I guess the point of this one is going to be the difference in quality expectation is usually severe, especially if you're charging good money. Now, for any of y'all already in business, you're going to be super familiar with this one, and this is going to be nickeling and diming you. This is when your client comes up to you and says, hey, as long as you're already here, I already have the smoke detector and I was going to replace that one on the ceiling, but I don't have a ladder. Do you think you could get your ladder and just get up there and replace it real quick as long as you're already here? And what happens all the way down at the end of the line is these homeowners are always trying to get you, depending on how long you're there, to do 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 other little additional items, and they don't want to pay extra. And don't get me wrong, you can talk to them in such a way that they're happy to pay extra. That's one of the skills you'll have to learn in this business. But generally speaking, they're going to try to get you to do some free work while you're there doing the other work. They're going to nickel and dime you. And it's hard to say no. There's a way. But when you have property managers as your client, not only do you not need to figure out how to say no, there's one default answer every time. And that one default answer is simply when the tenant who doesn't own this house, who isn't paying you, when the tenant comes up to you and says, hey, can you do something about that smoke detector? Your answer, 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, is I have to remain within the scope of work that I've been authorized to do. If you would like any additional work done, please feel free to let the property manager know, and if the property manager approves that work, they'll assign that work order either to me or to another handyman, and then we'll get you scheduled and come back on a future trip to take care of that. That's the answer. Every single time is, I'm sorry, but not only will I not, I can't. That's not how the system works. You need to report it, it has to get approved, and then it has to get assigned out to me, and then I would be happy to come back and fix it. So nickel and diming is just right off the table. It's not going to happen with property management. And moving on to number 8 is scheduling flexibility, and this is one of my favorite ones. I found when I did a lot of work for homeowners that the homeowners always expected me to have my availability be whenever it was that they wanted me to be available. So if they have a job, they want me to come either at lunchtime, really close to their work for a really quick job, or they want me to come in the evenings, or they want me to come on the weekends. Most of them don't want to take time out of the day in the middle of their normal weekdays to meet me at their house for just like a regular 2 p.m. appointment on a Wednesday. Because to them, they're spending, again, their hard-earned money, and they expect a certain level of service from you to bend over backwards and accommodate them. As opposed to property management, this is a tenant who's asking for something to be fixed on the house that they live in, and I have a template. And by the way, you can go to the description of this video or any of my videos, scroll all the way to the bottom of that description and click on a link for my free documents, and inside those free documents is going to be the template that I use for scheduling with tenants. And if you word things correctly and you type them all out just right, and by the way, I always do it in writing, I always do it via text, so I have a log of every word that was said. I don't do phone calls. But I have this template that if you use this template, the tenant 9 times out of 10, you offer whatever day and time works best for you, the actual next opening in your schedule that you would like to fill. And you let them know what that date and time is, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes, and they're going to be at the house waiting for you to come fix it, because they're working through you, through the property management company, and they feel a sense of responsibility to be available since they were the ones that asked to have it fixed, and they're not the ones paying for it. And trucking right along, let's talk about sense of urgency, guys. Again, when it's the homeowner spending their hard-earned money and they want to hire you, they want it done now. All of them think that their job should be your top priority job, and you should be dropping everything to come take care of their thing. And if you have a lot of work, we all know you just can't do that. But a property manager, they understand that their handymen have a lot of jobs on the docket, and they have to prioritize all of these jobs. So if you've got a leaky sink destroying a cabinet, that's a high priority job. If you have a beeping smoke detector keeping tenants from sleeping through the night, that's a high priority job. If you've got a window screen that has a little tear in it, so now you can't open the window for some fresh air, that's not a high priority job. And your property managers expect you to be good at simply managing the priorities of your jobs yourself, so they're not all coming to you expecting their job to be your top priority job. Vacant properties and work on the properties that gets done on the exterior of the building instead of the interior. Both of these two are amazing at filling out your schedule, because what you want to do is you want to leave the house in the morning and you want to be billable for that whole time you're gone. But if you have a job that ends at 11 a.m. and the next one doesn't start till 2 p.m., you don't have anything else to do most of the time, unless you're working for property managers. If you have a full schedule with property managers, most of the time, part of that full schedule is going to be vacant properties that you can show up to and work anytime you want, so you fill those blanks with those vacant properties. Or it's going to be properties where the work that needs to be done is on the exterior of the home, like working on the mailbox or the fence in the front yard or something like that. If that's the case, typically you can get in touch with a tenant and just say, hey, do I have your permission, since this is on the exterior of the home, do I have your permission to just swing by and fix this whenever I find an opening in my schedule? And I'll just make sure to call or text you just to let you know that I'm on my way. But otherwise, do I have your permission to just come by with or without you home and just get that job on the outside of your home? Just go ahead and get that wrapped up with or without you there. 9 times out of 10, the tenant is going to say yes to that, and then you now have all of these great jobs to fill in your schedule. Even if somebody else cancels on you, you typically can just bring up your jobber app and just go, oh yeah, there we go. Oh look, I've got that one 4 blocks away. I'll just shoot over there and spend the next hour and a half working on that. And number 12, window shopping. And I think we've all experienced this. Sometimes you get people who don't have money to get a job done, who are not seriously intending on getting a job done, but they're curious about what it would cost if they were going to get it done. So what do? They call the handyman, and you take 2 or 3 hours out of your day to drive all the way over there, look at their project, you go home, you look up all the materials, you write down everything you need to write down, you visualize the job, figure out how many hours it's going to take you, write up a whole quote, spend some time making it a really good quote because you really want this job, and you send it to them, and you never hear back from them. Because they were not interested in hiring you in the first place. They just wanted to know what it might cost if they were ready to hire. And what I will tell you right now is that it's not a problem that never happens with property managers, but it's a problem that's much more rare, because property managers don't have a lot of extra time in their day to do window shopping. They're not curious about what it would take to upgrade these homes or to get new vanities and stuff. If the house needs it, they're trying to get it done. If the house doesn't need it, they have no interest in wasting your time getting estimates for projects that the homeowner is not intending on having accomplished. And the next one, number 13, is mutually assured destruction. Here's what I mean by this. Your property managers, because they provide you with, let's say, $100,000 a year worth of work each, because they provide you with so much, you have a very high incentive to do right by them, because if you don't, you lose $100,000 a year worth of work orders, not something you want to happen. However, your property manager is in the same boat, because if they lose you, if, and this is a big if you're providing logistics and you're doing a good job of providing logistics, and that's what this is. Juggling dozens or more jobs at a time absolutely is logistics. It is not easy to do when you've got 30, 60, 80 jobs at a time all open, and you got to track the status of everything, parts on order for everything, invoicing everything, getting all the estimates out, making sure the invoices have been paid, ordering more parts, scheduling jobs, rescheduling jobs, keeping everybody happy, keeping everything all on one page. That is logistics. Not a lot of handymen can do that. Most handymen can fix stuff, but most handymen cannot provide logistics. And if you get yourself into a position where you are actually providing and doing a great job of providing logistics to your property managers, if they do you wrong and they lose you, they're not likely to be able to replace you with another handyman who can provide those logistics the way that you've been providing them. So if you make yourself extremely valuable to your property manager and they're extremely valuable to you, you're both now in this place of mutually assured destruction where honestly it's in your best interest for both of you to work together to find great solutions to all of your problems. It's in your best interest to do that, and both of you are more likely to do that, and that's going to help you maintain that relationship for years and years to come. Now, another one of the negatives that a lot of people don't like about property managers is their payment terms, because most property managers for single-family residential homes, most of them have a net 30 payment schedule, and what that means is from the day that you invoice that job, they have 30 days to pay you. So you're purchasing materials, you're putting in the time, and then you don't get paid for 30 days. However, what I will tell you first of all is very few of them take 30 days to pay you. Most of the time they're getting a payment initiated to get out to you within the week or maybe up to 10 days. Let's say they do take 30 days. In fact, for my move-outs, which are my favorites, some of my move-outs don't pay for 60 days or more. I'm okay with that though because I charge a premium. And that's another one of these tricks here, guys, is you get to charge a premium. Whatever you think is wrong with property management, that's why you get to charge that premium. For regular middle-income homes and regular middle-income neighborhoods where the neighbors around that property could never pay you a premium, the people in that house that's a rental that came from a property manager, they're going to pay a premium, or at least the property management company / homeowner of the home will pay you a premium. And part of that premium is because you have to wait longer to get paid. So what I figured out was, hey, yeah, it is a little bit inconvenient to have to wait longer for the money, but I can just simply charge a fee for waiting for that money. No differently than a bank makes money off of interest when they give you a loan. I'm making money off of interest essentially by charging more and then having to wait longer to get paid that money. But in the end, all of my billable hours throughout the day, I was making more money per hour on a long-term basis because I was willing to wait for my money. So I think the takeaway from this is going to be, if you can work for property managers, yes, you'll need to be able to wait longer to get paid. Yes, that means that you need more capital in order to get started, to have that money put into the materials and put into your labor while waiting to get paid. But if you can get that into a nice revolving, imagine almost like a snowball, you know, at first it doesn't seem to grow much, but it eventually can get so big that it just barrels down that hill and grows bigger and bigger exponentially. And that's what you're going to find happening with property managers, is you're going to charge more, and charge more. And eventually, when you really get those invoices rolling in, you're no longer worried about, am I getting paid today for the work I did today? You're worried about, did my $3,000 worth of invoices from 3 weeks ago, did 90% of those get paid out by now? And how many more invoices am I submitting this week so that I know I have more money rolling in 2 or 3 weeks from now? But it then becomes a big system that you're managing instead of this up and down roller coaster where you're freaked out every time a job doesn't pay on time. Now, moving on to number 15, let's talk about gratitude. I will say homeowners are going to show you more gratitude than a property manager will. They will typically give you a whole lot of thank yous and pats on the back and maybe even a $20 or $40 tip when you're done. However, a property manager, although they're going to show gratitude less frequently, the way they show gratitude is sending you $100,000 a year worth of work. I'll take the $100,000 a year worth of work over a few pats on the back or a few $20 bills here and there. All right, we're almost at the end. Let's move on to emotional expectations. And here's what I mean by this. I found in my own personal experience, when I did a lot of work for homeowners, they always wanted to be my friend. They always wanted to tell me what they think of politics, what they think of religion, what they think of whatever subject in the world. They want me to engage with them, and they want to feel like somehow this handyman they hired has become their friend, that you have some kind of emotional attachment. And to tell you the truth, my handyman business is not my social life, and my social life is not about my handyman business. I have friends and family over here. I have my way of generating revenue and providing for my family over here, and I don't want to mix the two. I have really great friends and a really great family already. I am all taken care of in that arena. I don't want to be friends with my clients. I don't want to be rude to them either. I'm still friendly with them. I say hi, I shake their hand, I compliment the picture of the kids up on their mantle or whatever, but I don't try to become their friend. And I found in the homeowner world, the bigger the job, the longer the job takes, and the more money you're making, the more they want to require almost from you that you become their friend. And I'm not for hire to be people's friends. I would much rather my clients be my clients and my friends be my friends. And finally, my lucky number, number 17. Number 17 is going to be this. I want you to take this away from this video. When it comes to property managers, time is money. You have a finite number of hours every day to build and grow your handyman business. The faster you can get it where it's going, the faster you can get to that end point where you get to retire or semi-retire, or at least work less hard or relax every now and then. That's the point you're trying to get to. You want that successful business. Time is money. Every minute of every day is as valuable as you can imagine. Property managers will take less of your time. Less time to sell, less time to schedule, less time for everything, all the things you have to do to get this done, providing estimates and stuff. You don't have to explain everything. A property manager doesn't want your time. They just want problem solved, which allows you to focus on solving problems and not selling yourself or making somebody think that you're their friend or jumping through whatever hoops they need you to jump through in order for them to become your client. A property manager wants to send you a work order and a few days to a week later receive an invoice, and then they want to pay that invoice and be done with everything because they have a life that they want to get back to as well. So time is money. Property managers will waste less time of yours than any other kind of client in the world will waste. So I highly recommend that you focus on getting yourself some property managers, either as the sole source of revenue for your business, or at the very least, as a really high quality filler for all those down points. Now I want to tell you about some resources I have to help you out with you and your business. Of course, first and foremost is my documents. If you scroll to the bottom of this video or any of my videos, there's a link to get my free business documents. There's tons of documents in there that are going to help you build and grow your business. Next, I have a lot of campouts and or cabin stays. These are always sponsored. I get sponsors to pay for me to provide accommodations and meals. You just have to get yourself to wherever I'm going to be and then get yourself home. But you can spend a weekend with me and, more importantly, with other handymen who are at various points along that ladder of building their business. You get to spend the weekend with us and really pick our brains, and we're going to pick your brains too, and we're all going to provide a lot of value to each other. I want to reiterate, these are free. I get sponsors to pay for them, and they're probably the best resource that I can offer you guys. In fact, we just got done with Blue Vines. It was amazing. There's a link for Blue Vine in the description of this video, by the way. If you guys need a checking account, they are probably the fastest and easiest and lowest hassle way to get yourself a business checking account. The next one is going to be in June, actually coming up, June 13th through 17th. We're doing the Handyman Camping Convention. That one's sponsored by Jobber. There's a link in the description that you can use to get your free trial of Jobber. And speaking of Jobber, on the weekends, I do my webinars. I do free webinars, and my webinars revolve around how I use my Jobber software to run my handyman business. And I can't stress this enough, guys. The core of this business for me, the core of my business. The very thing that allowed me to build it and grow it to where I've built it and grown it to has been using 𝗬𝗪 as my CRM. It tracks everything in my business. It literally runs my whole business for me. I highly suggest 𝗬𝗪, but they're paying for the June camp out. And by the way, yes, there's a link in the description for you guys to go get your trial. They're paying for the June camp out. They also paid for one last year. Next Insurance is sponsoring a camp out. In fact, it's going to be a cabin stay. And this one's going to be for my Tennessee crowd. It's also for Georgia and Alabama and everyone else, but I kind of put this together specifically for my Tennessee crowd. That one's coming up in July. I think it's the 24th through the 27th. Next Insurance is paying for that. You can thank them by going to the description and clicking on their link and getting yourself a free quote. But what I'm trying to say, I guess, is I do a lot of events. These are in-person events where you get to come and pick my brain, and as I said, more importantly, the brains of all the other handymen that are there at that event. They're always magical events. Everyone always walks away very happy that they attended. Finally, I do have a masterclass. You can go to bulletproofhandyman.com for the masterclass. Actually, that's also where you go to sign up for the events. I didn't mention that. To sign up for any of these events, go to bulletproofhandyman.com. These are free events. The button says buy ticket. You don't have to buy the ticket. It's free. I just don't know how to change that button yet. But go to bulletproofhandyman.com to sign up for those events, and also go to bulletproofhandyman.com for the masterclass, or go to the Thinkific website. I have the same masterclass hosted there. I'm also working on a new masterclass that I'll hopefully publish in the next month or two. And these masterclasses, what they do is they take you from step 1 all the way through step, I don't know, 21. And if you just simply watch the first one, do what it says, watch the second one, do what it says, watch the third one and do what it says, and on and on and on. If you do that, you don't have to have a lot of fear and anxiety around this big concept of start a handyman business. Instead, your job is simply lesson 1. It's not start a handyman business, it's just lesson 1. Pick a name. Then it's just lesson 2. Then it's just lesson 3. Then it's just lesson 4. You do all these lessons, and by the time you get done with the last lesson, you have clients, you have a handyman business, and you are a business owner now, providing for yourself and your family 6 figures with your own 2 hands. If you guys need anything from me, you can email me at bulletproofhandymanbusiness@gmail.com. I can't always respond same day, but I promise you, as of right now at least, my channel has not gotten big enough for me to not have time to respond. As of right now, if you email me at bulletproofhandymanbusiness@gmail.com, I will answer your questions. I will reply to your email. That is a personal promise from me. If you've emailed me and I haven't replied and you think it's been a little bit too long, resend that email. Bump it up to the top of my list. I can miss them every now and then, but email me, bulletproofhandymanbusiness@gmail.com, and I will email you back. There's a newsletter you can sign up for. There's a link in the description for that. If you want to support this channel at all for any reason, if you're finding any value, there are no paywalls. I never charge y'all for anything. The way you can help this project out is just simply to go through the description of this video or any of my videos and use the links that are already there for the products and services that you're already thinking of purchasing. That's what y'all can do to help out on this end. Otherwise, I love you guys. I hope you're out there killing it, and I'll see y'all on the next one.